Whilst everyone's laughing at North London's finest, Chelsea are beyond a joke. Arbeloa's walking on borrowed time in Madrid. Could Gordon become Olise 2.0 at Bayern? And Leicester appear destined for consecutive relegations. This is DMAC Daily. Don't get me wrong, guys. I'm all for the quad bottle unfolding. I would love nothing more than to see Spurs in the championship. I mean, that would be a truly euphoric timeline, wouldn't it just? But perhaps some self-reflection is required here, because the poor decisions of my childhood meant that I chose to support Chelsea Football Club. I meant to say Chelsea soccer franchise. Now, I'm not sure if you've been tuning into this sorry state of a club lately. I certainly don't blame you if you haven't, but needless to say, it's a shambolic state of affairs. 6 losses in their last 8 games. The 2 wins came via second and third tier English opposition in the FA Cup. I would hate to support Chelsea in the Champions League, and in the Prem, it's 4 straight defeats without scoring a single goal. Heck, the last time this lot won a Premier League game, Arsenal were still chirping about their inevitable quadruple. Chelsea now sits 7 points adrift of Liverpool in the hunt for UCL football. Missing out on this competition would be a devastating outcome for the Blues, considering their precarious financial situation. Granted, if Villa win the Europa League, then that 6th place will also gain Champions League qualification, but at this stage, I'm very skeptical about Chelsea even finishing in the top 6. 14th place is just 6 points adrift of them currently. Beyond that, every single department of this Chelsea team is in a bad way. The goalkeeper situation is still unconvincing. Defensively, they are a shambles. Bar Caicedo's performances alongside Enzo to a degree in midfield, it hasn't been good enough. And going forward, João Pedro is the only player that isn't chronically underperforming. Sure, Esteval's a great talent, but he can never stay healthy. Every other player in Chelsea's forward line has gone missing. Cole Palmer is struggling to replicate his previous heroics. Pedro Neto is allergic to end product. Delap has gone 20 games without a single goal. 30 mil well spent, by the way. And don't get me started on Garnacho. I mean no disrespect here when I say this, but I sincerely think he's not all there. After that United game, Luke Shaw posted a photo of him on Instagram, basically decking Garnacho. Shaw also liked a comment from Angry Ginge saying, "Who's that twat from Argentina?" You'll never guess who just happened to like Shaw's post. None other than Garnacho himself. Bro might actually be brain dead. Meanwhile, Rafinha is currently steering the ship. And look, I'll be completely transparent with you. I was quietly impressed in his first month or so in charge. Understand, Maresca's sacking was a bombshell. Rafinha's appointment was not well received by the Chelsea fanbase. The resume was unconvincing. He faced an uphill battle from day one to convince the fans of his ability. Yet 7 wins in his first 9 games in charge was a decent start. But boy oh boy, have things quickly deteriorated since then. 8 defeats in his last 10 games in charge. Multiple players have publicly spoken out about the club and thrown tantrums on the pitch. And it must be stated, Rafinha isn't helping himself with the way he communicates to the press. He tries to evoke this sort of intellectual persona when he speaks. Some refer to him as a LinkedIn manager for good reason. There was the manage aging men quote, the whole respect the ball saga, and just today he produced another banger. We have to arrest this run of form. Unprecedented sentences being spoken. It's gotten to the point where there's now protests being held outside the stadium lamenting the reactionary, directionless Bluecoat ownership. It just feels as though the club has reverted back to that same miserable cycle of 2024 when the new owners dropped a casual £1 billion on young players, the majority of which were unproven at the time. Now, when Chelsea then won the Club World Cup over the summer, it did appear as though this was going to be a pivotal moment in the club's upward trajectory, that these young players were starting to develop a winning mentality and that they could compete amongst the Premier Leagues and Europe's elite moving forward. Well, this season has evidently shown that that is not the case. They've clearly regressed on the pitch, but can you honestly be surprised? Look at Chelsea's recruitment this summer, just shy of £300 million spent, yet João Pedro has probably been the only one real hit. Again, Esteval's a great prospect, although we haven't seen enough. I also rate Hato too, but the issue persists nonetheless. Chelsea needed experienced personnel to take them to the next level. They needed players ready for the here and now. The Mike Maignan transfer saga was a prime example of Chelsea's lack of ambition. Yes, Rob Sanchez had improved in the past year, but Maignan was a world-class keeper available for 30 million euros, less than what they paid for Delap, but they weren't willing to commit. Why? Because where's the resale value of an aging asset like Maignan? That moment was telling. An ambitious owner's main aspiration is to win silverware. Chelsea's, however, is to commit young talent to long-term deals with the principal goal of increasing their market value over time. Modern-day Chelsea are essentially an investment portfolio, a supercharged version of Brighton's Moneyball. This philosophy is not applicable at a bigger club like Chelsea, so we can blame the manager, we can blame the players, but ultimately the club's stagnation is the byproduct of a comically inept ownership. And I can't help but wonder, what long-term direction are Chelsea headed in? Complete financial decay? Could they become Spurs 2.0 and end up in the championship one day? It sounds absurd, I know, but I also don't have any logical reason to back Blueco at this point. Moving from one shambolic club to another, and Alvaro Arbeloa's Real Madrid future looks increasingly grim. Despite stepping into a turbulent mid-season environment following Xabi Alonso's January dismissal, Arbeloa has arguably failed to impose a clear tactical identity, with results also hardly improving. A UEFA Champions League quarterfinal exit, an embarrassing departure from the Copa del Rey, and a fading La Liga title challenge collectively points towards a season that falls below the club's non-negotiables. Sure, some of the internal personnel woes appear to have been resolved, but harmony is worth next to nothing when silverware is absent. With Florentino Perez adhering to a ruthless, results-driven approach, the expectation now is that Arbeloa will most likely see out the season but not extend beyond it, which begs the question, who would be an appropriate fit to lead the next iteration of Madrid? Because the power of friendship philosophy worked brilliantly under Don Carlo, only to wane out in his second stint, so Perez then opted for the ultimate tactician in Xabi Alonso. Yet he lasted barely 6 months in order to bring back a unifying figure whose tactical ambiguity has hardly improved the club's state of affairs. To be honest, I've got no idea what Madrid want in a manager, but there are some intriguing candidates nonetheless. Didier Deschamps is stepping down as France's manager following this summer's World Cup campaign. In terms of prestige, he's right up there, but I'm unsure he'd be willing to jump back into the hot seat at one of the most chaotic environments in Europe. Same thing applies to Lionel Scaloni of Argentina. Speaking of Argentines, Pochettino is another international manager frequently linked with Madrid, although I'm certainly not convinced at this stage. Just 3 titles won in his senior managerial career, all of which came via PSG. I think Madrid personally could do a little better. Klopp is a fun one. No one's questioning his pedigree, although it remains to be seen whether he actually wants to return to the dugout in the immediate future. I think a more likely candidate could be someone like Andoni Iraola, perhaps, who's set to leave Bournemouth this summer as one of the most sought-out managers in Europe. It'd be a big step up, no doubt, but remember, he's had previous links to Madrid. He's already on their radar. The other high-profile candidate that I wouldn't be surprised to see linked is Enzo Maresca, who's proven his pedigree previously at Chelsea. But who do you think is the ideal candidate to lead Los Blancos moving forward? Let me know below. Moving to transfer news, and Bayern Munich are the heavy front-runners for one-away Newcastle star Anthony Gordon. While no formal negotiations have taken place as of yet, credible reporting from The Telegraph, The Times, alongside Sky Germany's correspondent Florian Plettenberg, claim that Gordon is open to a move, seeing a club of Bayern's stature as a logical step up to the elite stages. Meanwhile, Newcastle's willingness to sell is driven largely by financial constraints. After heavy spending and a rising wage bill, the club now finds itself at risk of PSR complication. Bayern's initial valuation is believed to be within the region of £55 million. However, Newcastle are demanding at least 75 mil, a fee that I think is certainly within reason. After all, his contract doesn't expire till 2030, and he has shown that he's capable of performing at a very high level for both club and country. Sure, his performances with Newcastle in the Premier League this season haven't been incredible, 6 goals in 26 league games, but in the UCL, the guy's been absolutely prolific, one of the competition's premium performers. Bayern will also be confident in pursuing another Premier League forward. Remember, their current world-class trio all arrived via English clubs. At 25, I certainly think there's room for growth too. The only real stumbling block with this pursuit comes down to, is this transfer necessary for Bayern? Having already forked out 75 mil for a winger last summer, it's not an imminent priority signing. Whereas you compare that to other Premier League clubs, and he would be an ideal recruit. Clubs like Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, Gordon would come in and instantly become a key player at these clubs. Are Bayern willing to get into a bidding war with English opposition? They fell short in the Wirtz pursuit last last summer, although in this instance, Newcastle would probably be more willing to sell to a non-English club. I think this is going to be one of the most fascinating transfer developments of the summer, particularly if the Englishman has a prominent role to play in England's World Cup campaign. Staying on the topic of English football news, and a decade after Leicester City's historic Premier League title triumph, the Foxes are now on the brink of a second consecutive relegation to League One, the third tier of English football. Their most recent setback, a 1-0 defeat to Portsmouth, triggered furious backlash from supporters. Fans accused players of lacking effort and commitment, with chants of "you're not fit to wear the shirt" in the crowd. There was also footage of Ollie Winks crashing out at the fans outside the stadium too. To be honest, I can understand the supporters' disdain for the players at this point. The team has managed just one win in their last 17 league outings and are currently sat 8 points adrift of safety with just 3 games to play. Pending a miracle, they are almost certainly gone, which is an unimaginable scenario considering they have the highest wage bill of the entire league alongside the 4th most valuable squad. A defining moment in their shocking collapse came in February this year when they squandered a 3-0 lead at home to eventually lose 4-3 to Southampton. Off the pitch, financial mismanagement has amplified their woes too. Heavy spending since 2021 combined with a failure to include relegation wage clauses led to unsustainable costs and an eventual 6-point deduction for breaching financial rules. The fans have frequently voiced their frustration at the owner's seemingly negligent operations, with several protests and banners unveiled at games throughout the last 2 seasons. It is sadly doom and gloom at a club that was once the ultimate fairy tale story in English and world football, really. As of today, they're still mathematically within reach of survival, but the odds are looking increasingly slim. Anyways, guys, that's all for today's DMAC Daily. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.